Hello and welcome to the Common Sense Gospel. I am Danny Simmons.
And I'm Kurt Norbert.
And we released an encouraging words on December the 4th, where I talked about the recent practice that is gaining some popularity in some circles where people are skipping their Thanksgiving meals and holiday parties with family, and they're looking for new options to replace that special time with family and friends during the holidays. And so we're calling this episode No Contact? Really? This idea of no contact usually is referred to as going no contact with others, especially family members who you don't agree with. In the encouraging words, I use Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. And also use Luke 6 and verse 35. God is kind to the unthankful and to the evil. And we're children of God. God has shown us who he is. We're supposed to emulate and be like God. And so we too need to be kind to the unthankful and to the evil. We're going to continue in that thread today and look at the specific Bible situations where Christians face opposition from family and friends and what they did when it happened. We have to include Jesus in this because no one was opposed more than him. And as we read these accounts, we know that Jesus was perfect. What did he do? How did he react? And what can we learn from his example? Before we look at Jesus, though, what are your thoughts, Kurt, on this reaction from some?
Well, I as I looked into it, I learned that it actually originated as a sort of a psychological technique for people that are in, I guess, what you could call toxic relationships, bad relationships, maybe going through a bad divorce or a really unpleasant breakup. And it was recommended that in order to get some space and allow yourself some time to recover or protect yourself in this situation, maybe from a person who's aggressive or whatever, that you isolate yourself from that individual by just cutting off social media, unfriending them on Facebook if you're on there, or getting them off your contact list. You set it up so that they don't have access to you anymore. And that seems to be a valid tool. In those situations, you do need to protect yourself. Unfortunately, what it's morphed into these days is kind of a tactic for ending all contact with someone who disagrees with you politically. I can remember seeing a video of a lady who was speaking at the microphone, talking to this guy that was holding a sort of a question and answer discussion back and forth. And she said, just because I came to one of your discussions to hear what you had to say, and learn from that. When my friends found out about me, they just no contacted me. They got on her case. I'm not talking to you anymore. Just this extreme reaction. And she said that kind of opened her eyes a little bit. But she was commenting on that. And what it is to me, it just demonstrates an intolerant attitude and a self-defeating attitude because you're cutting yourself off of opportunities to learn. It's almost like you're fearful of being possibly shown to be wrong. I don't know, but one thing I have noticed is that kind of what drives this response to someone who just maybe they didn't vote the way you think that should be done or whatever. There just seems to be an attitude of fear and anger and hate all around it. I mean, here's someone who is a social contact viewer, a friend, quote unquote, and just because they went somewhere,
right,
you're going to just slice them out of your world. I just don't get that. I get it, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah,
and
I think
it's a harmful technique to the person who does that, to those who engage in this no contact extreme response like that.
Yeah.
Because they're weaving a cocoon around themselves of this is my little world. And anything that might upset it a little bit or call into question anything I believe or say or do, I'm just going to put that aside. I'm getting it out of there. Well, life just isn't that way.
Right.
You can't have a perfect little cocoon where nothing bad ever happens. And so it's almost like trying to seek an unreal world of passivity or an echo chamber where you say something and everyone will come back saying, yeah, that's right, I agree, so that you're encouraged, I don't know, But that is destructive
Yeah.
to have that kind of an approach to things.
Yeah, it really is. And if you're threatening those kind of things, everyone who's around you or is still in contact with you is walking on eggshells because they hold dear the friendship in some way. And so the whole thing is really ugly. You don't want people that you trust and want them to trust you to be afraid of you or to worry about what you may say about something to the extent of being that hostile that, I will cut you off. It's because what you're going to do, as you pointed out, the natural end to that is going to be, I'm all alone. And the world is awful and everyone's wrong. But if you can find 3, 4, 10 people who do agree with almost everything you think about, now you're living in what we call an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no new idea being introduced. Many times it's because of the fear of being shouted down or kicked out of the group. And so you're right. I think having that ability to freely speak and to know that not everything I say you're going to agree with, but because of who you are, you give me room to say, well, actually, and point out some facts maybe that I need to hear or know about. There's great benefit to having other people around us who don't fully agree to help us continue to think and to be reasonable and to be able to argue our case in a sensible way. All of that is beneficial. But when you shut the door on everyone who says something that you don't like, then you're going to run out of friends ultimately, because even you and I mean, we're almost like Siamese twins. Like we think the same way on everything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're joined at the nose, though, so it makes it a little hard to get around.
Our brains are connected. You don't ever disagree with me, and I never disagree with you because
we're always right.
Right. And we know who the leader is, and that keeps things in order. Because when both of us know who's leading, then,
that's right. Don't forget, Dan.
Oh, trust me, I know.
But it's disturbing because, first of all, it's a life of extremes. Oh, you're my friend. Until one day you went to this rally just to see what was going on. Now you're my enemy.
So is that ever friendship?
Yeah, it's a good
be.
question.
It can't be.
There's no depth of relationship there. But it's just this disallowing of any discussion. Here are topics that are off limits. We will not talk about these things. Well, maybe they need to be talked about.
Right.
Maybe you won't be so upset about them if you talk about them and learn some more. You might, perish the thought, even change your mind.
Yeah. And we want to be able to change our mind for the better. We do it all the time. It's just really very interesting that there's certain things we just can't stand. So again, we're doing this now because of the season holiday, and we can think about the application of this now. If you're going to be with your family during the winter holidays, and you'll have some time with some who are not exactly on the same page as you, then now's the time for us to talk about it with you. That, okay, I'm about to go be with family. What can I do to make things better and make things easier? How do I possibly bring those things up that just need to be kind of dealt with as quickly and as lovingly as possible, and then move to the side so we can be a family again? There's a lot of people who have some repair work to do within the home. And so this is good for us to think about. Let me give you a case in point in John's gospel. We'll look at Jesus and how he deals with his brothers and how his brothers are dealing with him, because there is absolutely confrontation here. In John chapter 7 and verse 1, it says, "After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Judea, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brothers therefore said to him, 'Depart from here and go into Judea, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world.' For even his brothers did not believe in him. Then Jesus said to them, 'My time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it, that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not yet going up to this feast, for my time has not fully come.'" So as John chapter 7 begins, John introduces us to this moment, interaction with blood family members, the brothers of Jesus. When you first look at their statement, when it says they said to him, "Depart from here and go into Judea, that your disciples may also see the works you are doing." If that was the only statement we had from them and no follow-up from John, I don't see a problem with that. They're saying, let your disciples see you. But as we progress through their statement, you start to see, oh boy, there's something's wrong here. They're really rubbing in like, you're so special and you're everything to everybody. Why don't you go into Judea and let the world see who you really are? You can just feel the family tension in that. And that they say, no one does works like you and wants to be hidden. Go become popular. Go be everything that you think that you are. And then John says, because his brothers didn't believe in him.
Right. I was just going to point that out. That was really the underlying motive. They're not saying this to encourage Jesus to do something they think is right. They're goading him. They're kind of making fun of him, trying to bring him down. Maybe there's a little jealousy there. Our brother's famous. Why don't we get a little bit of that? We're his brothers. Who knows? But yeah, there's a family divide there, which wasn't cleared up until after Jesus rose from the dead.
That's exactly right. And so what I want us to see in this case, we see the antagonist obviously exposing themselves, declaring their position, as you just pointed out to us. It's Jesus' response. And I think we won't respond the way he does in our conversations with family, but there's a huge point that we can all take. Verse 6, then Jesus said to them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. Point is, Jesus is telling them the truth. That's always what Jesus does. And so truthfully, he says, yeah, appreciate y'all bringing that up, fellas. That's not what he said, but it's like, my time has not yet come. I'm going to Judea. Like, how ignorant are these brothers to think that there's an opportunity here to make fun of him or whatever they're doing, because he will go to be crucified. Like you said, they won't believe until his resurrection. But he says to them, my time has not yet come. And then he points out something about their character. The world can't hate you. How come the world can't hate them?
Well, because they're worldly.
They've agreed to go along with the world, right? Yep. Jesus is not that person.
They're not standing with their own brother. They're not seeking to find out, he is doing some amazing things. Maybe he's who he says he is.
Yeah.
We need to find out about this.
Yes.
They're just, they're standing against him. And if you stand against Jesus, the world's going to love you because the world stands against him.
That's exactly right. And the fact that he says, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. They haven't seen the extent to which the world hates him. So like, oh, whatever, you're always saying that, but think about when they see him on that cross.
Mm-hmm.
And these words coming back to the brothers who once were pushing him, possibly making fun of him and saying, why don't you go show everybody who you are? That he says, my time has not yet come. Just imagine the weight of those words after and during his crucifixion.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that Jesus will often do that. He'll say something which doesn't seem to have any effect at the time, but he puts it out there hoping that the seed will blossom at the opportune moment. He's never wasting any breath when he teaches.
That's right.
From his wisdom. So I sometimes think of the brothers as they're seeing that, and they're seeing Mary suffer, watching her son die, and they're, what's going through their mind? Man, either he really was crazy because now he's being executed for this, or there's more here than what we have allowed ourselves to latch onto. And of course, the latter.
That's right. So for us, as Kurt and I discussed this, we're not Jesus. We can't speak of future events factually. The truth that Jesus possessed is far greater than what we as normal people have. But the point and the goal still has to be the same. What I will say to a family member will be what I know and believe to be true. So I think if you say things to those that you're having a hard time with, you can say, this is my current position. So in other words, the door is always open for conversation because I just might change my mind based on the facts I have and what I understand. And also for us as Christians, what the Lord has revealed, this is why I do this or that. Again, not saying now you either see it my way or we're done here. The right thing to do is to say, this is my thought, and be thoughtful about what your thought is. Be kind to them. Give them time to talk. We've discussed this before in other episodes about those crucial conversations that we need to have the right heart in that. But speak the truth. Anytime I find myself starting to just spout off facts that I heard but didn't confirm or verify, I know I'm in trouble. I can evaluate that about myself. Like I'm throwing out material just because I'm losing this conversation or whatever. That's not good. It's not healthy for me.
Yeah, and there are too many Christians that do that, speaking off the cuff or what have you. I kind of learned a long time ago to try to look up primary sources if I'm going to assert something. If you make a truth claim, you better have the facts to back it up, because if you don't, then it's just your word against theirs. But looking at this from a biblical viewpoint, as Christians, we cannot have this no contact mentality.
No.
Because Paul, for example, commented in 1 Corinthians 5 when he was talking to the Corinthian church about a brother that was in sin, and they said, you need to cut yourself off from this person, no contact. So that is there is a time for that, but it's a very specific situation.
Yeah.
And then he explains in verses 9 through 11 of 1 Corinthians 5 what he meant by that. He says, I wrote to you in my epistle not to keep company with sexually immoral people. Yet I certainly did not mean with the sexually immoral people of this world, or with covetousness, extortioners, idolaters, since then you would need to go out of the world. But now I've written to you not to keep company with anyone named a brother who's involved in a list of sins that he goes on to give. So there's that specific situation. But when it comes to the world, he says, I'm not telling you to go out of the world. You're in the world. This is where you live.
You're right where God wants you.
Yeah. And it's the old saying, we're in the world, but not of the world. In other words, we don't look to the world for our marching orders. We don't follow the world's wisdom, such as it is, or its words of advice. But we as Christians live in this world, just as Jesus did when he came. So there's a way that we need to take advantage of that, which is what the Lord wants. He tells us in Matthew 5, he told his disciples, you're the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? Salt is imparting flavor. But how does it do that? It comes in contact.
With
whatever
exactly.
it is that you're seasoning. So as Christians, we are to interact with those who disagree with us, which is going to be most of the people most of the time. And so we need to learn how to do that in a productive way that's going to draw them to Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. And we see all of that happening with his conversation with his brothers in John 7. I'm going to give you another one where he's in conversation with the Pharisees, and this is not going well. John 7 told us that he did not go into Judea because the Jews were trying to kill him. So when we get to John 8, the very next chapter, verse 13 says, the Pharisees therefore said to him, you bear witness of yourself. Your witness is not true. So here's a heated conversation about, you're a liar.
Yeah.
Verse 14, then Jesus answered and said to them, even if I bear witness of myself, my witness is true. For I know where I came from and where I am going, but you do not know where I come from and where I am going. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one. And yet, if I do judge, my judgment is true. For I am not alone, but I am with the Father who sent me. It is also written in your law that the testimony of two men is true. I am one who bears witness of myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness of me. Then they said to him, where is your Father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my Father. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. So again, the conversation is obviously very heated between them. They've accused him of being a witness to himself, which means it can't be true. They're trying to use the law to say, no one should listen to you because you're the only one who thinks that. Boy, does that sound familiar when you're in an argument? Mm-hmm. You're the only idiot. It's like, oh, well, thanks. I'm glad we can have this conversation. You're a nice person. So they say, your testimony alone can't be true. The law shows that. And he says, okay, first of all, if I say it, it is true. Again, this is Jesus.
Yes,
so
right.
There's nothing they can say or do to counter what he just told them. But he says, because your law teaches that two witnesses confirm a truth, my Father bears witness. Now, and I'll just ask you, Kurt, without moving through this chapter, how does God, who they can't see, bear witness? How is he giving testimony of his Son?
Well, Jesus pointed out is by the works he was doing.
That's right.
The miracles that he constantly performed validated the word that he was proclaiming.
which the council understood because Nicodemus in John chapter 3 comes to Jesus and says, no man can do the things you are doing unless God is with him.
Yes.
So maybe not all of them are accepting it, but Nicodemus is in the council and he sure enough believes it. So because what we're saying is true and because we apply that same truth to ourselves, there's something there for them. They may not, as they're looking you in the face, they may not say, gee, you're right about everything you just said. I'm with you now. But God gives us minds and the ability to reason and think through and to reflect back. Haven't we all done that after we leave a conversation, especially if it's a serious one? We always critique ourselves. I should have said this.
Yeah.
This could have been done better. So the seed is planted. Let that have its perfect work. With the Pharisees, the perfect work is going to be that they hate him to the end of his life. That's by the foreknowledge of God. Mm-hmm. But that seed for all those standing around and listening are saying, this guy has never been wrong. And what he's saying is true. He just healed this guy over here. He just made this guy, gave him the ability to walk. This one's got the ability to see. He's saying that God in heaven bears witness of it. It's true. So truth is such a powerful thing that if we can just offer it peacefully and lovingly, following Romans 12:18, then those who are trying to win over, they have something to think about.
And it's important, I think, to remember, and it's hard to do in the moment a lot of time. You kind of need to train yourself to remember that this discussion is not about me being right. I'm trying to help them see what the truth is. And so when the argument reaches a point where it's not getting anywhere, instead of continuing to argue and say, now, this is what I said, and this is right, and I'm going to show you so that I can walk off the victor. You just need to make a statement that is true from the scripture and let that sit.
Yep.
Walk away and just say, obviously there's no fruit in allowing this conversation to continue. So maybe we can come back to it later, but let me leave you with this thought.
Exactly.
And then you go peaceably on your way, but you don't have to get into a big old argument because you've lost if you do that.
That's right.
Because it's me against you now, instead of me trying to uphold the word and show you what it says.
Yeah.
In a calm manner. And boy, that goes a long way.
It does, because not only have you shared something that's true, but you're also continuing to demonstrate your confidence in what God has said. So you say, let me just leave you with this thought, and then be bound up in what the scriptures have taught and revealed to us, that your confidence, you're not trusting in yourself. You're saying, I believe God, and this is what he's told us. And so you really need to be thinking about that.
And people notice that.
Yes.
If someone's overhearing your conversation, or later on the person you're talking to thinks about it, they're going to realize, wow, they approached that a lot differently than I did.
Right.
They didn't get angry. They didn't raise their voice. They were calm. They just kept giving facts. And that's what you hope for. Make them stop and think. That's why Jesus asked questions. That's why he was willing to discuss with his enemies the different things they would bring up, because he would ask them questions or make a point that was designed to make them think about where they're coming from.
Yep. Yeah, and you mentioned too that there will be a time potentially to say, let's take a break, or really that's all that I can do, and I'm going to have to move on no matter who that person is. And the Bible deals with that as well. Jesus says in Matthew 7 and verse 6, do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. So when you give that which is holy to the dogs, or you cast your pearls before swine, as Jesus has said it, he says the problem with that, knowing that there are dogs and swine, is that they will trample what you've given them under their feet. Pigs don't care if you give them pearls. They'll step all over it to get to the next corn kernel. That's not what they're interested in. And so Jesus does tell us, be mindful of that. By their fruits ye shall know them. We have to evaluate that. So at some point, we have to stop. But what I always try to encourage people to do is to leave the door open for a later date. We don't know what God's doing in their life to maybe change what they're doing or what they're thinking about a particular subject. So if we offer our 2 cents and we know the Lord is working on them, we don't want to slam the door shut and lock it. Something along the lines of, okay, I can tell we're just not seeing eye to eye, but please understand that I'm always ready to talk. So you gently and lovingly say, I'm done with you until you're ready. And when we can talk like civilized human beings, that'll be a great day. And I look forward to it. That's just a good way to kind of say that's enough for now.
Yeah. And it comes to that point. Like I say, if you try to go past that point, now it becomes an argument between you and the other person.
Yeah.
Which is not going to be productive.
No.
But I think it's self-evident when you reach a point when you're discussing with somebody and they're just hard to, that neck gets stiff. They're just getting louder, more confrontational. They're not even stopping to think about what you said. Well, there's no point in trying to get through that because they're becoming emotional. And once you reach that point, there's no way to reason. Because one of my favorite mantras is strong emotions blot out reason. You cannot reason when you're angry and losing your temper, when you have become emotional about something. You don't think straight.
Yeah.
You're not listening. And when you see that, then it's like you said, politely and calmly and pleasantly bring the discussion to a close. Let them know you're available if they ever want to discuss anything more about it. But then stop casting your pearls. There's someone else out there who does want to know what the Lord says.
That's right. That's exactly right. So we looked at John 7 and John 8, Jesus dealing with family members, then Jesus dealing with what should have been his friends, but certainly declared themselves not to be. And we mentioned, I'd said in the beginning that, we'll look at cases in the Bible, and instead of going through it, just offer to everyone, you want to watch someone dealing with family issues, just look at the life of King David, who, for the most part, and most of that was a godly man, especially during the days of Saul. Saul gave his daughter to marry David. That whole thing is a train wreck. And to watch a man who's trying to serve the Lord and who loves him so deeply, being mistreated by everyone around him, and then how he responds is really good. I would also encourage people to read all of John 8 because the conversation between Jesus and the Pharisees, there's just a treasure there with someone who is violently verbally attacking and then someone else who is peacefully and calmly with authority responding in truth. And so it's a beautiful picture of the way that we should behave. We do have trivia questions.
We do.
Okay. What do you have? What are you going to ask the people that's going to trip them up?
Well, probably can't trip them up, but my goal in these is to try to humiliate you.
Way to refocus your purpose here.
No. For those of you who've been with us for a while, you know that we do this at the end of every episode. Just come up with 2 questions that we bounce off of each other. We don't know what they're going to be. We have not discussed this. But it's also a chance for you, our listeners, to test your Bible knowledge a little bit and have a little fun answering these questions. So
That's right.
I take it then you're wanting me to serve first.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're up.
Here comes a fast one right down the center line.
Trivia, sweet trivia.
What part of Egypt did Pharaoh give to Joseph's family when they came?
That is Goshen.
That is correct.
Very good.
Yep. Genesis 47, 1-6. They were sheep herders. And so Pharaoh told him, go into the land of Goshen, which apparently was the most lush pasture land that Egypt had.
Yeah. When Buddy Payne was here in town, he asked that question for the trivia because I told him just bring 2 questions. He asked what land was given by Pharaoh. And he said it wasn't Israelite Park. And just started laughing out loud. And I was like, what is that about?
Yeah.
Said his daughter was at Florida College, the camp. And the teacher asked, what was the land? And his granddaughter, so he's like, oh, because he was there. She raised her hand. I know. He said, yes, little girl. What was the land? What was the name of the land? And she goes, Israelite Park. And he said the guy who asked the question was just like,
okay.
That's not a bad answer.
Yeah,
really.
What do you say? That's interesting.
Yeah. So that one's sticking in my head. It is Goshen and not Israelite Park.
Yes.
Question number 1 for you. Name the 2 earthly brothers of Jesus. We just talked about the conversation they had. Name the 2 earthly brothers of Jesus who wrote a New Testament book.
That would be James and Jude.
That's exactly right. James is the brother of our Lord. Galatians 1:19, Paul says James, the Lord's brother. And then Jude, in Jude 1:1, he says Jude, a bondservant of Jesus Christ, the brother of James. And so those names are given to us also when the brothers are listed in the Gospels. And so both of them are there as well. So James and Jude. Very good. Give us number 3.
Okay, here's the third one for y'all, and my second one to Danny. Why in 3 John did John rebuke Diotrephes? What was his basic problem?
He desired the preeminence.
That's right. In 3 John 9, he says he loves to have the preeminence.
That's right.
And so he was doing all kinds of evil things, trying to control the brethren in that congregation.
Yeah. Trying to control a church.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that happening
One
these
man
days?
show. Yeah. Yeah, Danny, about that.
No.
No.
All right.
We don't do that.
No, we do not. We are brethren.
Yes, we are.
Last question of the day.
All right.
Finish this famous quote from Joshua. That's not a question, is it? That's a statement. Finish this famous quote from Joshua. But as for me.
And you.
From Joshua.
Oh, Joshua.
But as for me.
As for me. And you. No, that's not it.
No.
Maybe it's as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
I knew you were joking. I was going to give you the next word. Yes. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Yep.
Judges 2:10. That's Joshua 24:15. But in Judges 2:10, we're told when all the generation of Joshua had died, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord. They did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they served the Baals. It's really a sad commentary on the inability or the unwillingness to share God's truth with the next generation.
Yep.
To do it effectively.
And that proves the old adage that apostasy is only one generation away.
That's exactly
You
right.
don't teach your children, God will be forgotten. And when that happens, people just go their own way.
Yep.
Because God no longer guides.
That's exactly right. So we're talking about no contact. Really, is that what you're going to do? So for those of us who are Christians trying to be faithful to the Lord, I want to remember Jesus and the way he responded to situations like that. Treat people with respect and love and live peaceably among them the best that we can. I'll leave all of you with a great verse that deals with holding the gospel in your heart and doing everything that you can to share God's truth and to bring more souls to Christ. 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 19. For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win the more. To the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might win the Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, that I might win those who are under the law. To those who are without law, as without law, not being without law toward God, but under the law toward Christ, that I might win those who are without law. To the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Now this I do for the gospel's sake, that I may be partaker of it with you.